The record should show that parties and counsel have returned to open court. The jury has joined us. Welcome back, folks. We did have a few housekeeping matters we needed to take up. Basically, we needed to move some furniture around for this afternoon, so we got that taken care of. Mr. Maybanks or Mr. Harris, you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, before we call the next witness, I just want to make it known, I think ahead of time, this witness is hard of hearing, and he's been wearing a hearing aid since he was 8, and he does read lips as well. So we're going to do our best with the next witness, but I just wanted to alert the jury of that ahead of time, so they kind of know what to expect.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Maybanks.
With that, Dr. Richard Fiester.
Back in there.
Good afternoon, Dr. Fiester.
Good afternoon.
If you'd please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. There are just a couple of rules in the courtroom. It's important that you allow the attorneys to finish any question before you begin answering. And I'm going to ask them to give you the same courtesy to allow you to finish an answer before they start to ask the next question. Okay. All right? Okay. And we'd ask you to speak up so that we can all hear you. Dr. Fiester, will you please state your full name and spell your first and last names for the record?
Okay. My full name is Richard Frederick Fiester, MD. I'm a retired pathologist.
Okay. Can you spell your first and last names?
Richard, R-I-C-H-A-R-D. Fiester, F as in Frank, I-E-S-T-E-R.
Thank you. You may proceed with your examination.
Thank you. Dr. Fiester, how old are you?
How old am I?
Yes.
Okay, that's February. I'm 79 now.
All right. And
I just had a birthday.
well, happy birthday. Great. What you said you're retired, right?
I'm retired. I officially retired in 2003. I did not renew my license in 2015. I had done some local town from the time that I had retired until I finally gave up my license. I've been unlicensed since 2015.
What was your profession when you worked?
I was a pathologist.
Who did you work for?
Pardon me?
Who did you work for?
Okay. Basically, I work for myself. I have an MD PC that I work for. We have contract with Mercy Hospital and with Wheelan Laboratories later on.
I'm going to ask you about your experience, but I want to show you a document here.
And it's marked CV1. Can you look at that for me?
Okay, this is my CV. For the jury, I need to tell you what a pathologist does. I've had training in what we call clinical pathology and anatomic pathology. Anatomic pathology is blood smears, tissue exams, autopsies. Clinical pathology is that study of blood banking, bacteriology, chemistry, special chemistry, clinical fields in the laboratory. Okay. you want my, from this? Okay, okay. I graduated from high school in Western High in Kansas City, Missouri in 1959. 4 years later, I graduated from SMS College in Springfield, Missouri, which is Southwest Missouri State College, which is now Missouri State College, in 63. 4 years later, I graduated from medical school at the University of Missouri in Columbia with an MD degree. Following that, I did a 1-year internship in Wichita, Kansas at St. Francis Hospital. I did a routine internship. I delivered babies, I did pathology, I did surgery. I had a wide experience. After that, I did 1 year clinical anatomic pathology in Wichita, Kansas, St. Francis. Then I transferred my pathology training to Milwaukee, St. Luke's Hospital in Milwaukee. I had 1 year of anatomic pathology there and 2 years of clinical. I might say that in Milwaukee, I had an interesting experience that I worked for the medical examiner office in Milwaukee County. And there were 2 of us residents that we did the non-police cases. That was the cases that weren't bound by a felony judge. And basically those cases were unexplained deaths. Then after I finished in Milwaukee, I left my residency and went to Pathologist, West Virginia, and I practiced from 72 to 76. I was a full-time pathologist. I had a contractor relationship with the pathologists out there. I did autopsies, I did everything in the laboratory. I used all my experience there. Then in 1976, we relocated to Cedar Rapids, I should say. Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and I practiced from 1976 until 2003.
So what was your job in 1979?
I was a staff pathologist for Mercy Hospital. And one of my rotating was took call. We had autopsy call. We rotated autopsy call. There was 3 pathologists, Dr. Skopek and Dr. Chucker and I. We rotated twice. And in 1979, when I did the autopsy, I was on call.
When you offer an opinion today, will it be done to a reasonable degree of medical certainty? When you offer an opinions today, will it be done based on your expertise?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to request that the court find that Dr. Fiester can offer expert testimony today and that he's an expert in his field.
Okay. Any objection to the
No objection.
designation? Okay. The record will reflect Dr. Fiester's expertise, and he may testify as such.
Thank you, Your Honor. On December 20th, 1979, did you have an opportunity to conduct an autopsy of a lady who had died named Michelle Martinko?
I did.
What time was that autopsy performed?
We started the autopsy at 8:30 in the morning.
Where was it done?
It was done in the Mercy Hospital ward.
As a result of the autopsy, did you complete a report? Did you complete a report after doing the autopsy?
I haven't used it.
Miss- Mr. Maybanks, could we mic the witness, please? Could we use I think there's a portable mic?
He can have mine here, Judge.
Oh, Chelsea says we should make sure that that one's working. Doesn't sound like it.
No, it's on mute. Works. Okay. If you want to hold that and then, well, here, let's do this for you. Maybe just talk into that.
Okay, okay, is that better?
Yeah, it's great.
Do you need this?
Yes,
Or
thank
we
you.
still? Okay.
Move to amend state CV1.
May I have one to you, the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Hello, doctor.
Hello.
I'm wearing a mustache.
Turn your head back. There you go.
I would shave it off.
Well, my mother took me to lip reading school at age 8, so I'm a very good lip reader, but mustaches really hinder me.
Yeah.
So I may have to help her.
Okay. I would shave it off, but neither my wife nor my dog like strangers.
What was that?
Never mind. So, doctor, the report that
Okay.
you have has a lot of medical terms in it. Yes?
Yes.
Are these medical terms that men and women of the jury would understand without a medical training
I try to talk as a layman at times.
in your report?
The report is very specifically scientific, and somebody who was a layman that would have to read it, they probably have to ask me, what do I mean?
Yes. Or have a dictionary?
What?
Or have a dictionary?
Okay, it's okay.
All right.
Oh, do you have a dictionary?
Oh, no.
Your Honor, I object to the omission of the report on the grounds that it would not be helpful to the jury because it includes medical terminology that the witness testified would not be understandable to the lay members of the jury.
Okay. I don't believe it's been offered yet.
No, I was offering CV1.
See, just the curriculum vitae.
Then I'll reserve my objection. I have no objection to the CV.
Okay, very good. Without objection, CV1 will be received and made part of the record.
Okay,
So when we left off, we were talking about your report.
right.
And I'm going to hand you a copy of the report with the number 6 on it.
Okay. This is a 8-page report, 4 pages of the anatomic autopsy that I did and the other descriptive terms. Do you want me to elaborate?
I'll ask you some questions about it first, okay?
Okay.
Is this a report that you completed on a regular basis in your job?
Yes,
And does this report involve just the findings that you made in regards to Michelle's autopsy?
yes,
Okay. And is this something that you kept in the regular course of your business?
yes,
And does this contain an opinion on the cause and manner of Michelle's death?
okay. You use 2 terms. The cause of death is an anatomic finding. The manner of death is a forensic thing that's put on the birth certificate. I did not do the manner of death.
Did you find the cause of death in this
Yes.
report? And does this contain terms that explain the reasoning behind your cause of death, behind her cause of death?
Yes,
And would this report help explain your testimony or add to your testimony, if the jury would have it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is that...
Want me to paraphrase the report?
We'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get ahead of things.
Yeah, that's right. Is that a fair, inaccurate copy?
Yes.
Okay.
I've seen copies of it. As far as I can tell, yes.
Okay. And now we move to Admit States Exhibit number 6, Your Honor.
And Mr. Spies, would you like, or have you had an opportunity to review the proposed exhibit?
I have, Your Honor, based on the witness's testimony about the inclusion of medical terminology that would not be ordinarily understandable to the jurors, under Rule 5.403, I object to its admission.
Any response, Mr. Maybanks?
Your Honor, as Dr. Fiester explained, this report will help the jury better understand his testimony, the context of his testimony, and better help them to be able to refer to when discussing his testimony. It's recorded as a business record. There's no hearsay problems with it. To the extent that there be any kind of findings in there that weren't discussed as part of evidence, the jury is instructed to only consider what's been received in evidence in this courtroom, but it's very customary and typical type of evidence for the jury to be able to review. So that's our position.
Okay. Anything further, Mr. Spies?
Nothing else, thank you.
Okay. The court does find that this is relevant evidence and that given the contents, have been purported as the contents of the exhibit, that the jury will be permitted to have that in evidence, and with Dr. Fiester's testimony, it will be useful, and therefore it will be received and made part of the record.
I'll take that back now.
Okay.
Because
No, the report,
Okay.
sorry. Yeah. You'll get it back.
Okay.
Right now, I want you to tell the jury about how you conducted autopsies back in 1979.
Okay. Well, when you do an autopsy as a pathologist, the first thing you have to have is a permit. Somebody has to authorize the autopsy. In this particular case, the medical examiner deputy was Dr. Joe Gallas, and he gave a report, a permit to me. Then when you go, the body is transferred to the autopsy room, to the morgue. I specify that the clothes be left on the body, that I remove the clothes, not the nurses or the medical. So body comes to the body in the autopsy room, the morgue. At the time, I was taking pictures. I learned this from another forensic pathologist, and I took pictures mainly so that I can look at my pictures when I develop the report, so I can put my findings on the pictures. Those pictures that I have all been turned over to police. After I do an external examination, I have to be sure that the body has been identified. In this particular case, Detectives White and Detective Kiddo identified the body, what had been identified to them by the family members. So you have to have a permit, identification, then you do your external examination. An external examination from the head, just like a regular doctor would do. Head, scars, face, anything. Then you describe the clothing, and then I remove the clothing without cutting it up, and then I give the clothing to the police people, and they put it in their proper bags, and they do their chain of custody. Then, on this particular case, the body was very bloody, and it was covered, soaked with blood. So I had to do a lot of washing down. It's interesting to note that, his mother has probably told you this, that water will hemolyze blood and break it down so you can wash it off. So if you get a stain on your underwear, put water on it and wash it off. So after that, we go to various steps. I wash all the blood off and I get the clothing off. Then I go back and identify all the wounds. There's wounds in the face, the chest, the arms, the legs, and these are all detailed in the report. I can summarize the wounds.
Well,
You want me to almost summarize the wounds yet?
I think the question, I think the question was explain how you do an autopsy.
Okay,
So that's good.
Let me go back to that.
Okay, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Then after I do all this, then we do what we call the internal examination. We made a Y-shaped incision over the body, and we take out the heart, the lungs, the liver, the spleen, and describe any wounds on the heart and lungs, bowel, liver, and all this sort of thing. And then we go down and do what we call the pelvis, and we do what we call pelvic sweeps. And we take the vagina and the uterus and the ovaries out. So we take all the internal body organs out. It took me a while, but I got it done.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll give you back your report.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you a general question. Based on the overall autopsy, what diagnosis did you reach, or what conclusion?
What diagnosis did I make?
Yeah, what diagnosis did you find? What was your overall conclusion?
You mean the description of the wounds and?
Just the overall finding that you made.
Okay, the overall finding, she had multiple sharp edge wounds. I call them incised wounds, but the new terminology today is a sharp edge wound. She had multiple sharp edge wounds over her body, arms, legs, hands. She had one laceration, and the laceration is caused from a blow, and she had a laceration in the left scalp. Lacerations are a result of a blow and not an incised wound.
What did you attribute to her cause of death?
The cause of death was what I call the fatal knife stab wound of the chest. Was number 4, what we call it, the second part of the sternum. The sternum is divided into 3 parts: the mandible, the body, and the xiphoid. And the first wound, which I call number 4 wound, on the left side, penetrated deep into the aorta, and it caused a excised wound of the aorta. And basically, between those wounds of the lung bilaterally, she had multiple stab wounds over both lungs. She basically bled to death, but I interpret the fatal wound as number 4, which hit the aorta, and the aorta is a major blood carrying organ of the body.
Okay. On page 1 of your report, so on the first page of your report, on the bottom of that page, you have a finding on page 1.
Page 1, okay.
Yeah. You have a finding regarding the integral death. Can you discuss that finding and what you based it on?
Yes. The bodies present in the morgue with 2 things. One they have is rigor, which is a muscle contraction. She had a mild form of rigor. She had rigor. She had what they call posterior lividity, which is a pooling of the blood, and she died on her back. The other thing is, when I look at the organs under the microscope, I see a process of what we would call decaying. Autolysis is the word we use, autolysis. Autolysis it means decaying. And when I see a modern amountologist, that tells me that it isn't even over 24 hours. You know, amongst two organs of complete autolysis are the pancreas and the kidneys. And I only saw slight autolysis. So the interval of death, I gave it 6 to 10 hours, which basically part of it was based on what I know of when the body was found and when I did the autopsy. Is that better? Okay. Am I answering your question?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I think you're doing great. So, can we go to page 2? Page 2.
Okay.
You noted the clothing that she was wearing on page 2. Can you tell us what you noted about the clothing she was wearing up until you talk about her underpants? Go ahead and tell us the clothing she was wearing when she arrived at autopsy.
The clothing, right. Okay, it's in a paragraph.
Yeah, what did you know?
Well, I think she had a loosely tied black scarf around the neck. There's no reserve. The short black strapless dress over the main portion of the chest area. The lower legs are closed with the black fine neck pantyhose. Bikini type underpants are nude over the pelvic area.
Okay. Yep, that's good for now. We just wanted to talk about her clothing for now. Now, you mentioned when you were describing how you do an autopsy that you take pictures sometimes?
I take pictures, yeah.
Okay. I show you these pictures here, and on the bottom we have 5A, and the last one is 5V, okay? For now, can you just tell me whether you took those?
I took these.
Okay.
The nice thing about it is that I put the number on like A7973. So I know that that picture is the correct picture of it because the photographs can be reversed. But by putting this on here with the ruler, I can measure things with the rulers. So that's why I do it this way.
I forgot one here, it's
Okay.
5U.
Okay.
So, Dr. Fiester, are these all photographs that you took?
Okay. You'll notice I crossed my 7. Well. Do I need to explain any of these?
We're going to do that in a second. Are those all photos that you took,
Okay.
Dr. Fiester?
Well. These are all on pictures.
Okay.
I think I think they're all there, as far as I can tell.
These are all photos from Michelle's autopsy?
You're right. I take colorochromes, and the police developed those pictures from my slide that I project slides.
Your Honor, move to admit states A through FU.
Is this working better than?
F or 5?
Sorry, 5.
5?
Yeah, you're right.
5A through 5?
Yeah.
V as in Victor or umbrella?
Umbrella.
Umbrella, okay. Mr. Spies, have you had an opportunity to review the proposed exhibits?
I have, Your Honor, and they are received without objection.
Okay. The court will receive states 5A through U.
Try to use the pointer, maybe. Should have got that first. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. There's a TV up here behind you. We're going to put some photos up there, okay?
Might have to turn around.
Okay, sure.
Is that better? Okay.
Okay, the first one we're going to put up is 5A.
Okay. I can't focus in. Oh, okay.
All right. So, can you tell us what you're showing in 5A?
Right. This is after there's blood all back there. We washed a lot of the blood. There's still blood on the hand, but that's, and if you notice, I crossed my 7, and that's the first picture.
Okay, great. And what are you showing on her neck area there? What is that?
Well, these are sharp-edged wounds. When I went back to and did the final exam, most of all those wounds are in the anterior part of the neck. They did not hit any of the vital structures, such as the carotids or the trachea or the esophagus, but they're in the beefy part of the neck.
Okay. By the way, how many stab wounds overall did you find, or incised wounds?
Actual stab wounds, can I phrase that a little different?
You can phrase it however you want,
Okay.
okay? Yeah.
When I went through my report, I identified 29 wounds, sharp-edged wounds. Some of these wounds are what they would call, are they 1 or 2 or 3 wounds? So basically, I was able to identify 11 stab wounds, 7 over the chest, 4 elsewhere.
So 11 stab wounds on the chest and then more elsewhere, or?
I'd have to see my report. I think there was
Okay, gotcha, all right.
okay. I have one on the just below the angle of the left jaw. There is a stab wound that generates into the neck structure. So it must be one of those wounds there on the neck.
Okay.
So there was 7 on the stab, and as I go through the report, there was scattered others.
Okay, that's good.
So, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna-
Some of the stab wounds we're going to get in the further discussion.
Okay.
we're going to show the next photo now, 5B.
Okay.
Can you tell us what we're looking at there?
Can I see the original picture? Do you have the report? Yeah.
Oh, the picture. Okay, picture's over here.
Okay. This is kind of way in it wrong. Okay. This is the neck scarf that we saw. This is the upper part of the chest, and this is the lower dresser coat.
Okay.
There's too much blood on there. I can't really see a wound, but later on when I wash it up, I can.
And now we're going to put up 5C.
Oh, okay. That's the MM after Michelle Martinko. This is part of the, there's a zipper there. I think that must be the address or something, I'm not sure.
Okay, now we'll put up 5D.
Okay. This is a better angle of the all the wounds in the neck. I think one of those was a stab wound. Most of them are just slice wounds. This one under the lip, it cut into her mouth. She had blood inside of her mouth.
Okay. So can you tell us the difference between a stab wound and other wounds, and why you're making a difference there at that?
Some of these are superficial wounds, and it's the depth of the wound that determines the stab wound. And when it penetrates below a certain depth, and I can't tell you exactly what that depth is, but it's usually a result of an in-force as opposed to a slice.
And the next one we have is 5E. And tell us
It's just
about,
more of the same.
do we see,
And that's all described in my report.
in your report, when you talk about the neck wounds, is
Yes.
5E, that's
Yeah.
the neck wound?
But as I mentioned, all the neck wounds do not hit a vital structure such as the carotid, windpipe, or this sort of thing. In other words, they're in what we call the anterior compartment of the neck.
Okay. The next one is 5F.
More the same.
Looking,
Well, that's what described as a trapdoor. If you look at my report, I called that a trapdoor wound. It's probably the result of a slice as opposed to a stab.
.5G is going to be the right side of her face, so the other side of her face.
Okay. The question is, there's one stab wound that I talked about over here on the left chest, whether the point came through the anterior compartment and the tip of the knife came out there. That's a wound. It's a sharp edge wound. It's not a stab wound. This part over here would probably be a stab wound.
Are you talking about on her right neck?
Right neck.
Okay.
In other words, I think the blade of the instrument, a knife, if you speak, came through.
Okay, what about right here, under her?
Well, that's pretty much what I call the slice. Maybe like a slice, something like that, a slice wound.
The next one is 5H. Looks like you're focusing on her.
Okay. This is another, just a superficial sharp head wound. Doesn't penetrate deep.
And then 5I, can you tell us what we're looking at in 5I?
It's pretty much just a repeat of what we've already seen.
This shows that wound you described.
That's a wound, the same one that comes, I think, as a result of the stab wound identified in the neck where the point of the knife comes out at the other end.
In your report,
Do you document the stab wounds from page 2 all the way through to page 4 for the jury?
Yes.
Okay. So when they look at this report, they'll be able to see the location?
A specific location. I think that as we go through more pictures, we'll see different locations.
Yeah, we're not done yet, but yeah,
Okay.
you're right. Yep.
What, the answer to your question, yes.
Okay, great.
one second. So you said it was 29 total wounds and 11 stab wounds. So how would you describe the other wounds then? They were lacerations or?
There were slices, there were on the arms and the hand, there were defense wounds. You see one defense wound on the hand. Classic defense wound is one that's, defense wounds are basically hands and arms. So the slices, in the layman's sense of the word, would be a slice.
We have some pictures.
Okay.
The next one is 5J. Can you tell us what we're looking at in 5J?
This is a, I assume it's a right hand. It's a defense wound. It's you have a hand up at whatever, and the knife made that wound.
Okay, so what is a defensive wound? What do you mean by that?
Okay, in the pathologist circles, wounds of the hand and arms are most commonly appreciated as defense wounds.
Okay.
It's in the papers that I've read.
Is that an indication that Michelle was putting up her hands to defend herself?
Oh, definitely. I think a lot of the wounds are motion, different slices. She's in a lot of motion.
We have 5K next.
Okay. This is the classic wound described as a defense wound, where they put the hand up and the knife comes in and cuts it. Classic. Textbook.
I think that 5L may be more of that same defense wound. Is that right?
Yeah, this is another shot of that one we saw in the other picture.
And then 5M,
Yeah, this is just another picture of where I'm opening the hand of that defense wound.
This appears as if it's your left hand.
Uh,
Sorry, yeah, left hand.
That would be her left hand, yeah.
And then 5N.
This is another picture of the left hand. Pretty much defense wound.
I'm going to refer to page 6 of your report here.
Okay.
Now. This is going to be under summary of stab wounds and tracks.
I just have a few questions for you on that.
Right, it describes it. In this, I try to describe what kind of an instrument would cause the type of track.
What did you note as the measurement of the entrance site?
4 to 5 inches.
I think, now, is that the depth of the wound? Like how far it went down?
It does. Well, you got to remember the chest is flexible, so I try to estimate the length of the path.
And what was the general path of the wound? What direction?
Front to back.
Were her wounds more horizontal or vertical by nature?
All right, I got most of the tracks are horizontal to the frontal plane and the back horizontal.
Horizontal.
Yeah.
In your report, you noted that the wounds were 2 to 2.5 centimeters in length. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, the wounds in the entrance side are 2.5 centimeters. A centimeter is about 1/2 an inch, so we're talking an inch to inch and a half.
We're going to talk about another picture here. It's 5O.
Okay.
Okay?
This is the scalp wound on the left side, and I think I described it in the report. It's a laceration. She either hit with something or she bumped her head into something. But it's a blow to the head. Either it could be an active blow to the head or it could be a passive blow where she hit her head. I don't know which. And so there's no skull fractures.
So is this different than a stab wound? This is an actual, like, blunt force?
I don't know.
Did you see any kind of stab or slice wound to this? Or was it more of a bruise kind of wound?
Bruise wound, I don't recall.
Okay. Is it documented in your report?
That one is, yeah.
Okay.
It's in the head.
You said earlier that to her neck, was there a wound that went all the way through her body and back out?
Just one wound in the neck, I think, went through the anterior compartment of the neck. I think we described that.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that the wound went through one side and out the other? Is that-
Yes.
Okay. I want to talk about her fatal wound, the one to her chest.
There's a picture somewhere.
Okay, yeah, I think we'll go ahead and grab it. This will be 5P. Maybe you can guide us through this.
Okay. This instrument we use as disposed, this is the wound that was through the sternum on the left side, and it penetrates through the sternum. I think there's another picture.
Yep, and
Yeah.
next will be 5Q.
Yeah. This picture actually shows how it is penetrated through the sternum.
Was this the most serious wound she had?
Yes.
And again, was this the fatal wound?
I consider it the fatal one. That's the one that hit the aorta. But you got to remember she had multiple wounds over both lungs. So, but I could put my finger on one thing, that fatal wound. Because the heart is pumping, and it pumps a lot of blood.
So did this wound also penetrate her through her rib cage too?
Pardon me?
Did it go through her ribs too?
No, the sternum is in front. The ribs are on the side of the sternum. So the chest wound that you had over the chest would penetrate through the ribs. But they can go what we call the intercostal, the space between the ribs, as opposed to actual cutting the ribs. I don't think there was any fractured ribs.
Did any of these wounds go into her lungs? I think you mentioned that. Into her lungs?
They went to her lungs, yeah. Described in the report. And I think I've got the picture.
And we're going to put up 5R. What does that show?
This is lungs over here. Notice the lungs are completely branched because she bled to death. This is just a wound in the lung. That's all I can say.
Okay. And now we're going to put up 5S.
Okay. This is where the wound goes into the aorta. The aorta comes out of the heart and makes a sharp bend and then goes down. And this is right above the aortic valve, so to speak. It's a fatal wound.
And then this is 5T.
Okay. These are pictures of the lungs. I took the lungs out and I put them on the table, and I took pictures of showing the various lacerations of the lung. I can't tell whether it's right or left lung.
How many stab wounds did she have to her lungs?
Well, of the 11 stab wounds, I think 7 of them are in the chest. So if I take the one away from the water, that would leave 6 stab wounds in the lung.
Is that documented in your report?
I'd have to read. I don't know if I actually counted it on. Should be on the internal examination.
Here you go.
I specify the stab wound 1, 2, 3 are on the right, and stab wounds 5 and 6 are on the left.
Did you note in your report how much blood she lost?
In the examination of each prospace or hemothorax, I figured I estimated that there was 1,000 cc's of blood, which is a little bit over a quart, 1,000 cc's of blood in each gun.
How much blood volume did you believe she had based on her size and your autopsy?
I anticipated that she had a blood volume of 3,000 cc's. I went back, when I was reading the report, I took her height and weight and I went to my charge, and I estimated she had 3,000 cc's, so we're talking almost 2/3 of her blood volume.
So she lost 2/3 of her blood volume, or 1/3?
Pardon me?
How much of her blood volume did she lost?
2/3 of her blood volume. She bled to death, internally and externally.
Based on your report and all her wounds, can you give an opinion as to where the assailant was in relation to Michelle?
She was on her back, and the wounds were all on the front, so he was in front of her or on top of her.
Were her wounds also consistent with her being on her back when she was attacked?
Yes.
Based upon your experience in the autopsy, do you have an opinion as to the weapon that was used to kill Michelle?
That's in my report. I said that they would have a greatest width of 2 to 2.5 centimeters and approximately 4 millimeters at the distal tip. Okay. Well, I estimated in the paragraph above 4 to 5 inches. So put all that together, I say at least 4 to 5 inches.
You're talking about at least a 4 to 5 inch knife? The size of the knife, is that what you're talking
Yeah.
about? Okay. At least? So at least 4 to 5 inches?
Yeah, at least.
What kind of knife do you believe this
Well,
would?
when I go back to the papers I've read, they described, if you look at both edges of the wound, they're sharp. It could be a knife that, either a double-edged knife or a knife that's curved. In other words, it comes to a point, and as it goes into the wound, it hits the wound and it slices. That's about the best I can do. That's it.
Okay. Based upon your experience in the autopsy, what opinion do you have as to the force that would be required to inflict these wounds?
Well, as I described once, it can't be a pet. It has to be a real whop. I mean, it has to have a lot of force.
Doctor, based on your observations of the autopsy, do you believe that it is reasonable that a suspect could have cut themselves during an assault like this?
Yes.
We just have 2 more photos.
Okay.
5U is next.
These are chest wounds. I can't tell whether they're right. They were all over the chest.
And then 5B.
Okay. They're more the same.
One more question then. So, again, what is your opinion on the cause of Michelle's death?
Let's begin then.
What is your opinion as to the cause of her death? How did she die?
She bled to death, internal and external. She had blood all over her breast, all the internal bleeding from me, and I put the fatal wound in the aorta.
Thank you, doctor.
No further questions
I'm
at this
sorry,
time?
nothing further at this time.
Okay. Mr. Spies, do you wish to cross-examine the witness?
Yes.
You may proceed.
Hello again, Doctor.
Okay.
My lips
I'll
exposed.
try. Maybe we'll try. I'll try real hard.
Doctor, you talked about the fatal injury being an injury to the aorta, right?
Okay. Fatal into the aorta. Yeah, correct.
And could you tell us where the aorta is in relation to the heart?
The aorta comes out of the heart and goes behind the heart.
Okay. And how
The wound is in the first part of the aorta.
what would be the anterior or the front of the aorta?
It is in the anterior part of the arch.
Okay. How big was the wound to the aorta? How big was the cut in the aorta?
The aorta, I think, is 4 millimeters or something, what I gave in my report. That's a dime is 10 millimeters, so about half a dime.
And the reason I ask is that my father died of a ruptured aortic aneurysm. And I'm just wondering how long it would take someone to bleed out from a wound that size.
How long it would take?
Yes.
Minutes, less than 5 minutes.
Okay.
That comes from physiology.
Yeah, understood. Another witness in this case testified about all the blood inside the car. There was blood on the windshield, blood on the visors, blood on the windows, the doors, and you talked about the injuries to the neck, and you said that there were no, the carotid artery was not cut.
They were cut.
But there were injuries to the lungs. So were there any wounds that you would describe as spurting blood?
Yes.
Which of the wounds would have been spurting blood?
What? Oh, I couldn't tell.
You couldn't tell?
I think any wound, face wounds are notorious for bleeding excessively. So even though they look face, any face wound like that, minor arteries, you cut a artery, it'll bleed. So I can't tell which artery, which wound caused the bleeding. Any of them.
But stated differently, there were enough wounds that could have caused a lot of external blood loss,
Yeah.
right?
What now? I think yes, I think.
Okay.
I think that's what they're trying to ask me. Stated differently, okay. I think you're trying to ask me, with all the blood around, am I able to tell you where that blood came from? Is that kind of what you're asking me?
We'll start there. Yeah.
Yeah, and the answer is no. I can't tell you where it came from the wounds. Which ones? All of them.
Okay. But the wounds that you saw during the autopsy would be enough to explain that it was a bloody scene in the car.
Yes.
A couple other questions about digestion. You made some observations about whether she was digesting food at the time that she died. And did you find undigested food in her esophagus?
Oh, okay. Yes. She probably had eaten, it was meat. She had eaten meat, and it wasn't digested, so she probably died within 3 to 4 hours after her death, after she ate.
So there was food in her esophagus and also in her stomach?
It was in her stomach. What's the report say? I think it was, I found the meat in the stomach.
Yeah, you also found some food in her esophagus.
In the esophagus too?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Do you believe?
I've forgotten, yeah. I forgot.
Okay. Well, would it help you to remember if you looked at your report? Take a look at page 5,
What are we looking at?
about the esophagus.
Esophagus, okay. Okay, small portion undigested meat is in the esophagus. Gastric contents of that are partially digested food. In other words, she hadn't swallowed it all the way through yet.
Now, you also examined her genitals, right?
Yes.
And there were no injuries to her genitals?
No,
No injuries.
no.
Now, you also you obtained a pap smear.
Yes, we did. We didn't really do a pap smear, I don't think. I think we did a vaginal swab.
Okay. And the reason I said,
Pap smear would be different,
all right,
but what we did was a vaginal swab.
well, the reason I mentioned pap smear is because on page 7 of your report, in the lab report, it had a check pap smear.
Well, I guess you did a pap smear. The cytologist does this. I don't do it. I didn't actually do a pap smear. And she marked pap smear, and that's different than what I gave her. But, yeah,
So, but that's part of your autopsy report, isn't
yeah,
it?
that's part of it, yeah.
And in the whether it was a vaginal swab or a pap smear, there were no sperm observed.
No, that's correct. That's a cytologist report, not my report. In other words, that's part of the autopsy. In other words, like we would send a chemical test into the laboratory, they do it, and then they send the report back, which we included in the autopsy.
Well, but you endorse those findings, though, don't you? You accept those findings,
Yes.
and they're accurate?
That's where the question starts, right there.
I send the report back. I don't make any determination whether it's accurate or not. I just accept it.
Yeah, so let me ask it differently. The jury can rely on those findings, can't they?
What's that?
The jury
Yeah.
can rely on those?
If I send a report to a blood specimen to the laboratory, yes, I rely on
And the jury can?
it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, that's all I have for you.
Redirect, Mr. Maybanks.
Thank you, Your Honor. Briefly. This is page 7 of 8 of your report here. I'm pointing to some findings regarding sperm there.
Okay.
Does, Dr. Fiester?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
The specimen from the vagina swab that I took went to 2 different departments. One to the cytology department and one to the bacteriology department. This report was the exit 8 gram stain. That's obviously, yeah, that's a bacteriology report. That's 2 different departments.
And so, based on those reports, from the internal examination done of Michelle's genitals, there was no sperm found.
To qualify that statement, I would have to say there were no sperm of a detectable. If the sperm were found sometime, I would have to say, based on these reports, no sperm was found by these 2 people. That's the end of the report.
And that's from the
That's from the swab I took.
swab, okay. Did you do a microscopic view of any of her clothing?
No.
Okay. Would you be able to see sperm just by looking at it?
Definitely not.
Right.
Sperm are submicroscopic. They are very, very, very tiny.
They're smaller than a blood cell.
Mr. Spies asked you about blood everywhere. So did you see, from looking at Michelle in her body, evidence that there was a struggle?
Yes. I mean, obviously, blood was all over. And she was bleeding. Her heart was still pumping. There was a struggle.
And based on your experience, when there's a struggle, does that raise the possibility the suspect could cut himself too?
Oh, definitely.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Any cross-examination, Mr. Spies?
No further questions necessary, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Fiester. Thank you, Dr. Fiester. You're excused. We will recess for 15 minutes. So ladies and gentlemen, we will be in recess, and as always, I remind you of that admonition that I talk about every time we part ways. So please keep that in mind. We'll be in recess for the next 15 minutes.
Please rise for the jury. You can leave your notebooks on your chairs.